Always funny when I've got a topic in mind, but I hesitate in starting to record anything. And then maybe like a few minutes later, somebody will come walking past me and they'll express in some way what I was going to talk about. And it's funny how many times that seems to happen. So it's just happened again. And there was a book I read a few years back called The Distracted Mind. And the main kind of like premise of it was discussing technology, how it was basically just distracting you, keeping you away from normal thought without interruption, without influence. And then as I was thinking about that, there was a woman that walked past me. She had her headphones connected. She had a phone out and she was kind of on autopilot. She didn't really know what was in front of her. And so she got close enough that she realized she was about to walk into me. I couldn't move to the side because there was another lady behind her. People were so engrossed in technology and things that are not really that important. I say not really that important. I mean, does it really matter if you don't listen to somebody's podcast, or if you don't send somebody a text message about what you ate for breakfast, or sending a picture of your daily pose in front of the mirror? None of that really matters. And so this is where things have been skewed, because those are the things that people tend to concern themselves with. So the vanity, the vain type stuff, that is more important than developing yourself into being something better. There's always something that we can do to improve ourselves, right? Because nobody will ever be perfect. They can only ever strive for being something like that. They can only ever try to create and maintain the conditions that would enable something that would be described like that. I think distractions have a lot of influence over people. If you look at what happened 3 years ago, the entire world closed down, or rather people were told not to go outside. People were ordered to stay indoors. Maybe they were alone for the first time ever. Maybe they'd been so used to being in like a social group, and that had been kind of cut off. And so now they had to adapt to being physically alone. But I think there's only so much of that you can do, right? There's only so many videos you can watch. There's only so many time you can spend on the internet before you think, I don't want to be in here or doing this anymore. And so then it could be that a lot of people, for the first time probably ever, were not distracted. They were not being influenced to think about certain things or to be fearful about certain things. Now, if you wanted to, you could still subscribe to that. You could still subscribe to that influence. Just put the news on and be on 24/7, repeating the same thing. Repeating death figures, case numbers. That had no real meaning other than to make you fear it. All I'm doing with that situation, with that set of circumstances, there's never been something of that scale carried out before. I say carried out because it was organized, because people had to do these certain things, and those certain things had to be defined by somebody. So it was planned. It was to tell you that this is what you can and cannot do because of this thing. You can't do that. You have to do this. So whilst that was a method of control using emotion, so you're making people fearful of something in order to tell them, hey, here, this is what you need to do. This is the solution. This is very easy to control people using emotion, and that's why it's so dangerous, because it's very difficult for somebody to come back from a state like that, from being emotionally charged to being able to manage it because could be trauma inducing, right? How does the body deal with something that his idea was to make you feel a certain way, to make you do that certain thing? It's a very difficult concept for people to grasp, because it means that you have to accept that there's people out there that would want to control you. And so that can create fear of maybe other people, because it's an irrational thought. Well, if those people did it, how do I know that these people aren't doing it? There can only be fear in that situation. And all fear is, it's instability. It's a feeling of instability because there's no resolution. There's no solution to balance it out. So without that, it means people are essentially stuck. How do I get over that thing when I don't have a solution to it? How could you possibly accept that somebody had done that and be able to trust people? Now, this is all psychological, and it all sounds quite complex, but it just needs a simple understanding that balance is something that is required. If you don't have balance, you have fear, you have anger. And then on the other hand, you have the things that people tell you are truthful. It's a solution to a problem to make somebody do something. It was to make somebody do something. And so it had to be unstable to achieve that. Because it's like fear without a solution is just continued fear, right? It's a problem that you've not figured out. It's something that could destabilize your life or your health or something. It's a threat. Now, if somebody tells you that thing over there is a problem, and then say you need to stay indoors until I find a solution. So that's using the idea of that thing that you should fear. Because there's no solution, it creates instability. So you're more than likely going to go along with whatever that person says. But I mean, obviously, if somebody on the street came up to you and said that, you may not be so open to just believing them. So there has to be some kind of hook. There has to be something that says, for whatever reason, you should listen to that person. As much as people hate a government or certain people in government, they still listen to them. As much as they hate giving money to them, they still listen to them. They still do the things they say because there's nobody else giving them solutions. But then again, there's nobody else telling them the problems. It's all just a way of externalizing things. You create everything outside of the person. So the problem, the solution all exists externally to them. So if somebody is fearful of something, you wouldn't tell them how to deal with it. By maintaining the problem and the solution externally allows control because it maintains instability. So if you look at political parties and their association, are they right or left? I mean, that is an indication of which extreme ideology they align with, where right wing is more conservative, business-oriented, capitalist. Left wing is more human resource-oriented, particularly human resource. But if you understand that those things are just externalized, those ideas, and they're expressed as a big political party, but it doesn't mean that the outcome that those parties want to achieve is in any way aligned with the ideology that they claim to align with. Because I mean, look at what's currently happening now with all the strikes. There are people that are, for left and right, they're in government. Yet all these people feel the need to go on strike, so they're not really being represented. If they felt represented, then they would have somebody to go and voice the concerns to them. If more people felt represented, they would go and voice the concerns to the people that understand, that align with them. They would make the case for them. It'd be pointless going to somebody that aligns with right-wing ideologies. There's no alignment, there's no harmony. It's bad for business. So the way in which the political system is created and maintained and run is purposely to create instability. When there is sufficient instability, then the parties switch, because it's all based on consensus of people, right? People have to feel sufficiently pissed off with one in order to support another. But what's interesting is right now it looks like there's no support for either of those two extremes. You can't really position yourself on a scale and say, this is where I'm always staying, because your conditions are going to change. Conditions around you are going to change regardless. If you didn't get a chance to get away from distractions over the last 3 years, then you may have missed out on probably one of the biggest opportunities to see things for how they really are. So I think what happens is, just as your body, your digestive system is trying to deal with all the processed foods, all the meats that take hours to digest, and the feeling that it gives you in the pit of your stomach where you constantly digest, it's not healthy, it's not balanced. So if that makes up most of your diet, then your digestive system is going to be geared more towards digesting those foods. It's not a balanced diet to eat those things. And that is reflected in the way that your gut feels. Now, let's say that maybe you've got unresolved problems that have never been dealt with and never really free from any influence or distraction. So when you're eating that with new influence, new material, new videos, new podcasts, you're constantly keeping the mind active in terms of dealing with shit that is maybe of no utility, but it still has to be processed in some way. Everything that we take in has to be processed in some way. And the amount of the stuff that you take in, whether it's through food or whether it's through other sensory input like sight or sound, is all gonna have influence, and it can all cause imbalance. If all you listen to is Joe Rogan podcasts, that's the only thing that's going to be continually influencing you, whatever he says. And that's an imbalance. Now, you could say that you listen to 3 or 4 different podcasts, 3 or 4 different people, if they're all talking about the same thing, whilst it's not an imbalance because you've got a variety of opinion or a variety of potentially different opinions. If they're all talking about the same thing, then it's imbalance, even though it's the same 4 people, because it's all the same influence. They're telling you all the same thing. And it's kind of like, well, is that actually beneficial to me? It should be more what is going to help you get over your existing problems and progress forward. If it's things that are just keeping you in the moment, or things that are keeping you within external ideas that other people have had, and the things that they want you to think about, that's an imbalance. There's no focus on the internal problems, the internal ideas. Started to think of things in terms of balance. I think they may find life becomes a little bit easier to manage, because it means that somebody is treating you in a certain way. Maybe you know how to respond accordingly. If you look at how things are externalized, that's imbalanced. Something's being felt inside, and the problem and the solution are externalized, but you're made to feel something, then that's an imbalance, right? because the problem and solution have to come from within for it to be actual resolution. Because just as you would feel the problem, you've also got to feel the solution, because that process has been externalized. The problem is external. Somebody else tells you the problem. Somebody else also tells you the solution, which is also external. That could just be a consequence of constantly being in a state of distraction, constantly distracted. So there's never enough time or energy to actually identify, yes, that is a potential problem, or no, I don't need to subscribe to that. People are always going to be making problems external to you and trying to provide you with solutions, trying to make you feel something in order for you to accept a solution. And whilst it may not be manipulation or control in all instances, because it could be somebody's just learned to cope in that way, but it should be more learning how to find balance within, how to effect balance within. It shouldn't be an externalized process. It shouldn't be somebody is telling me I've got a problem and they're also telling me they've got a solution. But where did the problem come from? You felt that it was your problem because they made you feel a certain way. It made you feel fearful, made you feel angry. That's what makes you believe or think that it is your problem. It's because of that dynamic. Because that's how things feel real, right? The way that we feel emotions is what makes us have that feeling of something as being real. But it can be tricked in that somebody can give you an external problem and make you feel fear or feel anger, creating instability, ultimately pulling you over into their direction, into taking their solution on. It's not a stable way to live.